Welcome to This Week in Health IT, where we amplify great thinking to propel healthcare forward. My name is Bill Russell, healthcare CIO coach and creator of This Week in Health IT, a set of podcasts, videos, and collaboration events dedicated to developing the next generation of health leaders. This episode and every episode since we started the COVID-19 series has been sponsored by Sirius Healthcare. They reached out to me to see how we might partner during this time, and that's how we've been able to support producing so many shows. Special thanks to Sirius for supporting the show's efforts during the crisis. A couple housekeeping items for you. I'm speaking at the Atmosphere Digital Conference for Aruba, which I just finished recording on the state of healthcare, the impact of COVID on health IT, and the three most important movements in IT infrastructure as a result. You're going to have to tune in to hear that. Go to the Atmosphere Digital. It's a virtual conference that they're doing, and that will be airing in the next 2 weeks. I'm also hosting a panel discussion on the Edge with Dr. Chaudhry, from the CIO for Seattle Children's, and Rick Allen, the CTO for Navicent. Healthcare at the Edge, the convergence of devices, data, patients, provider, and care, which you can hear at the conference, and I will also be airing it as a podcast episode. So you'll want to stay tuned to those two things. Now, on to today's show. All right. This morning, we're joined by Tahir Ali, the CTO for Froedtert Health System out of Milwaukee. Good morning, Tahir. How's it going?
Good morning. Things are going well. Busy like everybody else is, but so far, so good.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. You probably have one of the better backgrounds of anybody we've had on the show so far. I mean, right. That's a pretty cool mural you got back there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My wife is in horses, so that's for her.
Absolutely. So, I want to get right to it with you. I mean, there's so much we're going to get the opportunity to talk about. Give us an idea of how your health system experienced the pandemic thus far. Let's just start there to get an idea of what was going on at Froedtert.
Of course. So as with the entire healthcare system in the United States, the heroes were all the clinicians that were, out there doing the work that they do best. What we did behind the scene, our technology team, the entire team worked really hard to make sure that we support them. If there was a place where we wanted to get some surge beds, we quickly deployed that. If there were some technology needs, we quickly deployed them. When people wanted to quickly deploy work from home, we supported work from home. So it was a really, really great collaboration between the frontline staff and the back-end technology staff to make sure it's a cohesive effort to deliver the best patient care that we can.
Yeah, we did a little bit of a call prior to this where I wanted to understand some of the things that you guys were able to do. And I asked you a lot about scaling up, and you talked to me a little bit about a project you had done around your EHR, a significant upgrade prior to COVID. What was the upgrade about? And just share a little bit with our audience what the upgrade was about and what were you trying to accomplish?
Sure. So, as you know, and I think COVID is going to be a paradigm shift where we do business differently. With the same token, we were a little lucky. We started doing our upgrade on EHR hardware a little earlier to make sure that the scalability is in place. In order to do that scalability and upgrade, we upgrade the back-end storage to the fastest storage possible that is currently available, NVMe RAM. And then we did a very, very fast interconnect to brand new front-end servers. So our capacity, we used to run between 75 to 80%. Now we are down to 20 to 25%. Now we are at a place where we can scale for next 3 to 5 years without any issues. Any kind of different variants that comes our way, we are really ready to take that head on and have that scalability put in. One thing that is extremely, extremely important, we got the new servers that have AI built in for specialized EHR workloads. So we are ahead of the curve in order to make sure that if there's any peaks that come our way, we can smoothly have that scalability built in.
So we're seeing AI come all the way down into the architecture, into the core architecture?
Absolutely. So this AI is especially made for special workloads. It's customized to a particular workload. And if you use that logic of artificial intelligence, you can deliver much better performance with a lower resources. So it's very specialized artificial intelligence built in.
So what did you end up doing on the storage side and on the compute? And you also changed the channels as well, right?
Absolutely. So we upgrade the back end to, like I said, NVMe RAM. The front end runs our Power 9s that has the AI built in. And of course, the interconnect were upgraded to 32 gig times. We have 8 or 10 different strands. So it's smoking fast. I don't think you can do any faster than that.
So you're ready to scale. I mean, and I assume that the pandemic sort of put a little bit of load onto it to really see how it was going to perform. And I assume it did fine.
Absolutely. So of course, as we build more surge beds, the resources were getting consumed. But with this technology in place, we had no issues.
Well, so you worked in New York City during Hurricane Sandy, and you shared some of those stories with me, and they're fascinating. And I think that fundamentally changes how you think about architecture and disaster recovery. How are, a lot of people are looking at the cloud, they're looking at different things. How are you thinking, you have this new model in place. How are you doing disaster recovery for this?
Sure. So I think with Sandy, it really changed who I am. One thing that is very, very important is making a extremely cohesive disaster recovery. What does that mean? Making sure that you look at all the peripherals that inject into your EHR, your PACS, any business line that you want to do disaster recovery and highly available solution. You want to make sure that you pull all the pieces that build that ecosystem. That's number one. Number two is make sure that it's auto failover. Once disaster happens, there is no time for people to pick up the call, their family. In Sandy, people had their homes underwater. So you can't ask 16 people to come meet you in some kind of data center or remotely get to your data center and do the steps that are required to move from one site to another. It needs to be seamless, it needs to be automated, and it needs to be orchestrated. Now, fast forward 7 to 10 years, now the technology is in place where you can automate and orchestrate a lot of different things through RPA and other automation tools where you can say, if this doesn't work here, automatically move it here. So that is a true disaster recovery for technologists where it's a zero touch.
Are we able to do, I know we can do that with some systems, but are we able to do that with the EHR yet? Or we're still working through a little bit of the legacy aspect of the EHR at this point?
Sure. So EHR by themselves are now built at HA. So they do have the integration of saying you can run it here or you can run it here. They have come a long way. Now, you have to decide all the peripherals around them. Even having Active Directory fully redundant across 2 data centers is very important. Your Active Directory doesn't work, nobody can log into your EHR. So you have to do some due diligence on looking at different things. Some could be more than one, and you can have a farm. The other one that does not work in farm, you can have one side, bring everything down, and automate everything that I would do in a keyboard through an orchestration tool. And they do exist currently.
So when you stood up your new environment, did you essentially say, hey, we're just getting 2 of them, we're putting one here, one here?
We got 2 and 2. So now we have 2 in one place, completely highly available within the data center. Then we have 2 more highly available within the data center. So at any time we can move back and forth without any problems. And of course, there's some currently intervention required for humans, but we are getting to a place where we completely automate.
It's going to be everywhere. I like talking to CTOs. It's interesting. The conversation we had before were like in completely different direction, but that's what happens when I talk to you guys. Because I love it. So give me an idea of you talked about some of the design principles, but this whole idea of architecture, we didn't adhere to it for so many years in healthcare, and it got us into trouble. We ended up with thousands of systems, silos of data. We ended up with, essentially unreliable networks because we allowed things to just sort of go without an intelligent design, if you will, of the overall architecture. What are some things you look at from a design principle standpoint to make sure that that's not happening at Froedtert?
Sure. So the key now is more scalability across your different application, your different tiers. How do you do that? A normal day, people are sitting at work and they're just working, and there's internet traffic. 2 months later, COVID happens. Nobody's sitting at work, and all the traffic is coming from home. Their internet traffic. How do you become that agile? A lot of new technology out there are very software driven. So you have to take a look at certain places where you can say, I can define my bandwidth. I can define my resources on the fly. I don't have to wait for somebody to give me a piece of hardware to add my resources or add scalability to what I already have. If you do a scalable solution and have that scalability through software, you can switch very quickly. So if you wanted the SD-WAN and you said, I'm not using this clinic, I'm going to shut this off and open it up here, you can migrate that resources across to all VPNs. If your VPN is not in use because it's a Monday morning and everybody's working, you can migrate that to all the traffic that goes to internet. So I think having a great scalable solution with a layer of software that can migrate your workloads accordingly will be the solution moving forward.
Yeah, and that leads into my next question, which is we were in New York together last year for a meeting, and there was a pretty dynamic conversation about on-prem versus cloud. And it was interesting to me because there's so much hype around the cloud. And there is a lot of practical applications for the cloud, but you were sitting there going, not for everything. And it was interesting to see that conversation. You know, what drives a decision for you in one direction or another, on-prem versus cloud?
Of course. So again, this is my personal opinion. Every healthcare has their own ways of doing different things. What I believe is cloud is a great place to have a scalable solution. So if you want to migrate something to the cloud and you want that scale and you want that resources, that agility on demand, you can definitely go to the cloud. But remember, cloud was really sexy 5 years ago because data analytics has not matured. Once data analytics has matured, people started thinking, oh, I put this application on that cloud, that application on that cloud. Now I have to pull all my data back so I can get rich analytics. So you have to be extremely careful where you put your data in your application and in your business. Are you going to do analytics? Are you going to mix and match that analytics with something that you have on-prem? If that's going to happen, then you have to pull all the data back and mix it with your on-prem data and have a richer data analytics. And if you want to move forward with predictive analytics, you got to be very close to the data. The minute data changes, you got to capture that change and see how that analytics changes tomorrow, day after tomorrow, hourly. So predictive analytics it's a newspaper versus .com. So you got to decide what you want.
Yeah. I mean, where that conversation ended up going was just, you have to understand the benefits of both. And, you know, and one of the things that we ended up talking about there was the need for an abstraction layer at the, you know, we have abstraction layers between compute storage and the software now, so that we can move those virtual environments all over. And that is really powerful. But now we need an abstraction layer at the cloud layer, so the multi-cloud essentially. And we end up talking about how important that is, because you don't want vendor lock-in.
Absolutely.
You know, people move this data in. I read some of these contracts. People move the data in, then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we have this really cool analytics things we're going to do. And they go, oh, well, it's not going to work. We'll just pull the data out. And they realize, oh my gosh, it's going to cost us almost double the amount to get the data out as it costs us to put it in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now you have data in 4 or 5 different places. So you're absolutely right. Having a great layer where you can containerize your workloads and swing between your cloud, somebody else's cloud, migrate. Now, the cloud providers are also getting really, really clever. And they said, hey, our cloud has this special one thing that no other cloud. So you can containerize your workload, but still you will be dependent on a particular feature that only one cloud has. So they are trying to keep you, but as a technologist, you have to be clever enough to make sure that they don't lock you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I want to get down to where the rubber meets the road. So two things I want to talk about: patient experience and caregiver experience. These are, this is the service that comes out of all this really great architecture that we create. As you consider the patient experience, let's start there. What projects do you consider the most important right now coming out of COVID?
Sure. So I think not even just COVID itself, but I personally think that we will become more and more mobile. If you look at yourself, your home, your kids, your family members, maybe 5-7 years ago, there was at least one PC in the house. Today, there are more iPads and tablets than even laptops. So we used to have a desktop, then it became laptop, now it's just a handheld. And I was looking at a couple of commercials that says, oh, your next handheld is going to be faster than your computer. So as we migrate, we have to realize that our consumers and our clients and our patients have also part of that migration. How can you give them everything that they need that they have at home? Same exactly when they come to our brick and mortar, or if there's a virtual visit involved. The key is providing them a layer of network or a Wi-Fi that is so robust that they can be anywhere and it has a better bandwidth and throughput than in their own home. If we can provision that across our entire network, I think that will be a great, great win. In order to do that, you have to make sure your cabling is up to par. You have to make sure that your access points are top of the line, and you want to make sure your networks behind those IDFs or MDFs are solid. And lastly, your throughput and your bandwidth to the internet. If you can manage those things and provision great SSID through the Wi-Fi, I think that'd be a great, great win. Now, let's say you stay at home and you want to do a virtual visit. Nobody likes to do any kind of video that is grainy or that has an issue. That also cleans that up on the physician side or a clinician side. So what we are trying to do is make sure that it is seamless across. Doesn't matter where you are, it's 100% seamless for your Wi-Fi anywhere you go. That's where we are starting. Of course, moving forward with getting more features inside with 5G, providing handheld, you can bring your own device. A patient can come in and still get all the capability that we can provide them through Froedtert. That's going to be next 5G wave that's coming our way.
Yeah, you think there's going to be more home-based type solutions where obviously you and I talked about the density. The density in the clinic room is getting pretty significant with, Bluetooth low energy, Wi-Fi. You name it. 5G, RFID. The density of the spectrum that's being used in those locations. We could also see the same thing happen at home with the medical centered home really taking off as a result of this. How are you thinking about extending your, so you thought through architecture for the last decade of within the hospital system. Now we have to think through architecture really in people's homes. How do we do that?
Sure. So I think, we can never, and I think it's going to be more and more challenging how you figure out the last mile. So it's going to be tough. I can't dictate what you have in your house. I can't dictate what type of cellular service you have when you go home. That's going to be tough for us to really dictate. That is also changing. Now, when the 5G comes, the cellular service in your home is going to be as fast as some of the Wi-Fis that are there. Wi-Fi themselves are getting better and better. Getting a gig in your house is not really unheard of. A lot of people have that. What you have to do is make sure the analytics is built in. You can provide the insight to your clients and your patients if the experience is not great. How do we do that? Today, we are looking at certain tools where we can say, hey, Bill, we were having that virtual visit. We saw that there was some graininess. We understand, and we can also tell you or show you that how the bandwidth played a part in how your experience was. So I think knowing how the experience is going to be delivered is the key to moving forward with better delivery. I think that's where we have to, because you can never provide the last mile to patients' home. And I think we have to figure out how to mitigate that. At least having the sense of where the problem is a first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I love the conversation. I don't know why. It's just the idea of having systems that have AI built into them. I would assume it's going to go from one end to the other. We might see that go all the way from the home network into the computer. It's going to be sort of layered into the entire fabric moving forward. It'll be interesting. And I guess you're using the IBM Power 9 has that built in, but we're going to see that probably in the Cisco products, the network and even other network products all the way out, aren't we?
Absolutely. And more companies. So they're starting with very customized workloads, very one-off scenarios. And they're checking those scenarios. Even the facial recognition, the network understanding. Now things exist for security where there's AI built in, where they can say, hey, this just doesn't feel right. I won't do anything, but at least I'm going to tell you that this particular traffic doesn't feel right. So there's a lot of things that are going on that will move the technologists away from touching the keyboard, but we will be doing more important things throughout the day than a lot of repetitive things. So I think all around it'd be a win-win.
Well, thanks again for sharing your experience, your time and time with us. I think at some point I'm going to want to have you and the CIO come on, because she was in New York City with you during Sandy, right?
Absolutely, yes.
That story, I mean, when you were telling it, it's the kind of thing that CIOs have nightmares about for years following. But I think it's such a great story in terms of just understanding what can go wrong. And actually, just about everything did go wrong in that story. It's really amazing.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to have you back on to talk about that. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for this week. Special thanks to our sponsors, VMware, Starbridge Advisors, Galen Healthcare, HealthLyrics, Sirius Healthcare, and ProTalent Advisors for choosing to invest in developing the next generation of health leaders. If you want to support the fastest growing podcast in the health IT space, most of you can say this now without me even finishing it. The best way to do that is to share it with a peer. Stop right now, send an email, tell somebody, hey, this is a great show. I'm getting a lot out of it. You're going to want to check out these interviews and conversations. The second best way you can do it is you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're putting an awful lot of new stuff out there, and it's exciting. The live show will only be available on the YouTube channel. It will not be dropped into the podcast channel. Some of you asked me to drop it in last time, but my team here internally wants me to stay focused on the strategy, and that is to have content that is specific to YouTube and to start to diversify our channels, if you will. So some of our content will only be available on YouTube. So get over there and subscribe so you know when it's available. Please check back often, as we're going to continue to drop shows on a daily basis through the end of June or until we get through this pandemic together. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.